I'm just going to get this disclaimer right out of the way. I'm not sponsored by anybody. This is only to educate, and I'm just a random person on the internet, so anything I say is allegedly in my opinion. Today we're talking about meal plans and meal plan subscriptions. The big dog being HelloFresh. YouTubers have been getting sponsored by these companies like crazy.
Video has been sponsored by HelloFresh.
That's right, this video is sponsored by HelloFresh.
This video is sponsored by our partners over at Factor.
Today's sponsor, HelloFresh.
Every single person that signs up for HelloFresh gets a direct commission of at least $10 for new customers. Blue Apron, nearly 34% of some of that referral money is what they get in like retaining customers. Average standard offer, let's say, of somebody joining HelloFresh, you can get 2 meals that are 2 servings. So let's just say 4 meals for $20 with their introductory offer. If they're referred and they're a new customer, the person who referred them can essentially get almost a 50% commission back. Beyond just like supporting maybe a creator, why a meal kit? The original came from Omaha Steaks, which used to be called the Table Supply Meat Company in like 1952, which although there was an emphasis on steaks, they were one of the first people ever to advertise in like magazines and mail flyers that you were able to send them a check in the mail, and in return they would send you your subscription of your weekly, monthly meat. The first time that a full established course meal was a Swedish subscription service called Dinner Peace that allowed like super busy families to be able to have home cooked dinners. However, the idea didn't reach the US until around 2012. In 2012, when these meal kits started to really kind of establish themselves and take off, there was about 13. And just to kind of give an idea about how big it's gotten since then, by 2023, last year, there was about 382. Let's pretend I do like meal kits and maybe go over some of the benefits that people have reported as to why they like meal kits. The first pro is portion control. You just get sent all the specific ingredients, everything's pre-measured, and you don't have an excessive amount of food that could allow somebody to maybe overeat merely because it's there. The ingredients are also fresh, and because you only get the amount of food that you need, there's also less wasted food because you wouldn't need to use the rest of the ingredient on any other meal. So you're not going to waste it because you only have exactly what you need. And it's healthy because there's vegetables in the meal kits. It also allows for catering to different diets. So you can pick protein plus, keto, pescatarian. It's also better for the environment. You also don't have to go to the grocery store. It's way cheaper than ordering out or ordering fast food, and you also save money on ingredients.
It's the most exciting thing you can do with the inside of a cake. Introducing the Betty Crocker Bacon Fill.
Did you know that the average household income for people who consume these products is over $125,000 a year? And over 75% of those people are homeowners. That makes more sense to me because I imagine people that are making over $125,000 a year probably have a little bit more frivolous money to throw around. Another word here that's going to be super important for us all to learn today is the word churn rate. Churn. Kind of like butter. The churn is basically the rate that customers leave a service. They're bringing in a lot of people and they're losing a lot of people. This is a really good term because nearly 90% of these said food subscriptions get canceled within the first year. Could in part be due to people who just make new accounts to try to reap the benefits of the new customer subscriptions, though. When we hit the pandemic, this is where I think everything changed. Blue Apron was one of the head honchos, but HelloFresh maintained a stable increase of profits before, during, and after the pandemic. However, at the same time, we also have grocery stores picking up as well and having a lot more delivery options in just a matter of days, weeks, months. And then we have Uber Eats and Grubhub also available for nearly every like food eatery place. How does that affect us now? So what? HelloFresh makes an astronomical amount of revenue compared to the other subscription services. So they're going to be what I focus on the most. I think they lie to people. I think they use grimy marketing tactics, and they use pricing strictly because their main competition really is the local grocery market.
Wherever you source the ingredients to do home cooking from scratch yourself, that's our competition.
Home Chef and HelloFresh both claim that their products are cheaper than the grocery store, which most of their ads also say.
And save over 30% using HelloFresh versus going to the grocery store.
The minimum for HelloFresh in particular would be 2 meals with 2 servings. But after that new customer entry period, 4 servings for 4 meals, it's $61 and it costs $12.50 per serving of HelloFresh. Another little tip, and I am not sponsored to these people either, please don't give out your actual information and card information to subscription companies. Use a company like I personally use Privacy, and you can stop getting weird unauthorized charges if you forget to cancel something, or if you're I just don't want this anymore and they're not letting you cancel, you can just kill the card. Allegedly, it's really hard to remove yourself from it once you do join it. So to reduce these churn rates, I will say I don't think all meal kit companies are bad, nor do I want to be oblivious to the fact that there are some people who have, way more money than time on their hands. Even then, there's companies like Methodology that I would say comes into play here. Their target demographic is ultra-rich people who have way too much money, and they're fine paying a good chunk of money to have their food just brought to their house because they don't want to spend any of their time. And I can't hate that transparency. I mean, even the CEO says that the company is a luxury for the rich. Seems like it's great, honestly. The ingredients are clear, the packaging's minimal, and they know they're not for a lot of people, and they don't have a huge client base. Now we get to move on to the marketing fallacies. One major argument that a lot of meal kit companies try to use is that they have a lower carbon footprint than grocery stores, and they give a handful of reasons why. But the statement itself holds onto a very small and specific margin of people to try to preach as a generally applicable truth. But their first focus is that grocery stores have a lot of food loss and waste, because this argument is also what is normal in a process for a grocery store. But this is also their numbers in trying to apply it to everybody, and if everybody behaves this way, if anything, if it's true, if everybody here was doing that, there's a systematic problem. HelloFresh isn't mediating a problem or a better solution. It's just more of a band-aid. Just a slight change in behavior could easily skew these numbers. Likewise, stores try to uphold an appearance of being stocked in full, even if the supply outweighs the demand. More so if there's so much waste at a grocery store, then why are we importing more food from other states when there's food at our grocery stores getting tossed away? If anything, it would mean people should focus more on trying to purchase locally so grocery stores waste less, right? For instance, if you impulsively buy groceries, then just order the groceries ahead and merely pick them up at the store. Then you won't be tempted to look at so many things and buy what you don't need. Some stores even have companies like Flash Food, and you can buy big boxes of miscellaneous fruits, veggies, meats, whatever that's going bad at a major discount, so that way it doesn't get tossed. We also could just learn how to reduce our own waste. We could educate ourselves on how to store food better long term. The whole debacle when people are seeing Dunkin' Donuts just tossing out dozens and dozens and dozens of food at the end of the day. You can freeze donuts. I mean, if something goes bad, you can just throw the scraps in a compost if that's an option. Or if you don't have compost, a lot of food scraps we have could be thrown into some sort of smoothie if we don't want to waste it. And as such, if you use most of your groceries you buy / more than the USDA assumes you're using, or you participate in food scrap systems, bring your leftovers to work, whatever, this study completely goes out the window. I seen greenhouse emissions was another concern. It starts with cows. Cows are the #1 producer of greenhouse emissions, which could literally just be super drastically reduced if their diet was tweaked just slightly. Food waste is a huge problem. Sure, that's valid. How is importing food going to help grocery stores, who are apparently already throwing the food away, if they're now losing more local customers who are ordering it all online. Another reason for the claim that it's better than grocery stores would be the last mile problem. The differences between like a simple route a mail delivery service takes to like deliver packages, how it's very streamlined to each customer, as opposed to the amount of times that cars have to go to and from their houses directly. If there's just one vehicle hitting all these locations, it's more streamlined and can reduce overall emissions as opposed to people who drive to the store and then back home. But the key here is that it doesn't consider people who stop at the grocery store on their way home from work, or carpool, or use public transportation, or get their groceries delivered from people who are delivering multiple groceries at the same time. I would say would really null the argument of car emissions, driving to the store as efficient as getting food on a mail route. HelloFresh, amongst a lot of these other companies, HelloFresh isn't just online. You can buy it in the grocery stores they're trying to argue against. Then it comes to the packaging. Most meal kit companies use an excessive amount of plastic and packaging. The only real pro here is that when things are packaged really well, it can help preserve the food for a lot longer or prevent it from like breaking, getting smushed, and that could in turn lead to less food waste. In terms of how it affects the environment, at least a vegetable decomposes. To give HelloFresh credit, they do state that they've tried to take some actions and trying to be more environmentally friendly, which if it's true, I can appreciate it. Their website goes on to show different ways that you can recycle and dispose some of the components you get in the packages. So their plastics that can be recycled are labeled number 2 and 4. Otherwise, it's trash. The insulation's recyclable.
Those 99% biodegradable Qult packs. It's water and a chemical called sodium polyacrylate. The same stuff you'll find in diapers. It's not biodegradable.
The boxes are made of recycled content mostly, or you can compost it, and that applies to paper bags too. I looked up what locally to me I could do to try to recycle things from HelloFresh. Besides recycling shopping bags, my choices was a local landfill. That might not be an option for me, and I feel like the landfill thing was almost more of a joke, like just cut the middleman out and bring it directly to the landfill for us.
They should say recycle where facilities exist.
As of 2 years ago, HelloFresh and like Chef's Plate, they didn't have any labels even for recycling or anything like that, so it's been a very recent development.
Chef's Plate and HelloFresh don't have those labels.
HelloFresh owns Green Chef and EveryPlate and Factor, so those also just kind of get lumped together here. So even if they can technically be placed in a recycling bin, many of the plastics that they use are very hard to reuse.
You can put the stuff in your bin, depending on what city you live in, but very little of it would ever end up at a recycler.
Why is that?
It's hard. It's hard to sort it out. It's hard to make this back into something else. These are not materials that are made for recycling. They're really made to be used once and thrown away.
In Canada, there isn't even a law defining what actually is recyclable, so a lot of companies can print said labels on things whether it is or isn't recyclable. The average amount of plastics being turned into something new is like 5%, and not even like recyclable pop bottles meet this threshold for actually being recyclable. The qualifier being that something should be at least 30% recycled to be considered a recyclable item. Even if we can recycle something, or we put it in a blue bin, a lot of times it just ends up getting thrown away in landfills with all the rest of the trash because companies can't make money off of it. The best option here really is to try to consume less plastic just overall and to encourage more reusable options. It's just a bit of a greenwashing thing at this point, which greenwashing is the deceptive marketing technique to appear more green and eco-friendly to the public. Like why HelloFresh is literally green, like their logo is green. I wanted to really get into the nitty-gritty to make sure that I cover a majority of the benefits people have and try to argue why they're not good for you. Remember the benefit of the portion control? It's like using the assumption that you have no other food in the house and that you wouldn't go to the store for more, or that you didn't just eat another extra serving of HelloFresh than they indicated.
Expectation versus reality. So you can see here, look at all those yam fries. All right, you ready for the sweet potatoes they sent me? For those yam fries. And this one's nasty, so that's HelloFresh for you.
This could be true if nothing at all is available to you, but I find that incredibly unlikely. The highlight of limited food does not indicate you're going to have better portion control, and it also is not indicative of satiety.
Satiety.
Many people also report that they ended up not even getting filled up from the said meals that they did have.
We got this steak and potatoes, right? This is the steak. It's 10 ounces. How is this enough for 4 servings?
I had to Google to check to make sure what the average was because I know everybody has different things. The average range was 3 to 5 ounces. Then we move on to the ingredients being fresh or maybe even organic as they claim to be. It says that a standard HelloFresh food lasts like 5 days, which I would argue is the same for most foods at the store. I would even say a lot of the food I buy at the store lasts longer. You can also just freeze anything yourself. So this at best really is the same as the store, and at worst, the grocery store, from my personal experience, would be better. And that's only assuming that this is all fresh and good if you don't leave the box out all day. Some of the meat from HelloFresh doesn't even have expiration dates, let alone the rest of the food. The next one also ties into this with there being less wasted food, because you would never use an ingredient for another meal, right? A lot of people ended up getting expired and bad food mailed to them.
It gets delivered on Tuesday, sits out in the hot sun on my porch. I get it, I open it up, everything's gone bad. Everything. It smells disgusting. The meat is warm.
Which I would say would certainly take a lead to food loss, top of just the waste of also transporting expired foods through the mail. They also have reports of E. coli outbreaks and lawsuits about their onions. Also, it's healthy. And it caters to different diets. Gosh, I'm so glad I can finally say what my thoughts were on this. Healthy is relative. You can easily eat poorly with HelloFresh, or you could improve your diet. That's the freedom of choosing what you want to eat. You could add a little too much oil when you're cooking these said meals, and you could also drastically skew the caloric content if desired. If the question is more highly processed, I would say the meals still contain elements of processed food because you're not touching only whole ingredients. Unless you're comparing it to something like fast food, then at the very least, I would say you have way more control with when you're making the food yourself, like getting it from the grocery store. The recommended sodium intake should be no more than 400 to 500 milligrams per serving. And if we take Factor, one Factor meal had 790 milligrams for a beef bowl. On the other side, I can get a TV dinner, Healthy Choice beef bowl for 300 milligrams. An even cheaper frozen meal option from like Marie Calendar that had the same amount of sodium as Factor. How healthy is it? I guess that would depend on what you're measuring. The diets aren't really greatly executed either. They have sections for Protein Plus, which you also have to pay more for extra protein in these meal kits, which for a lot of people focusing on protein is still pretty low, because that would still only equate to maybe 90 grams of protein a day. And that's on the low end for most people who focus on protein. I would also say with the Calorie Smart meals, so these meals are supposed to be low calorie, which, warning, I'm going to do a super brief talk on the calories here. Calories are super unique to the individual. Their meals say that they are roughly around 550. I would argue that's not super low cal. You can get a low calorie frozen meal at the grocery store for no issue for 300 to 400 calories in comparison. And then the next argument of you don't have to go to the grocery store or plan food or wash and prep the food, and you can save yourself a ton of time. It's just a flat out lie. Most people still have to get pantry staples and go for runs out to the grocery store. And people still might want random snacks or eggs or drinks or milk. So they're still going to the grocery store for random items. They're just now getting their food from a bunch of different sources. HelloFresh also, from what I saw, only offers like at a base a max of 6 meals per week for 4 people. That wasn't including the 2 other meals each day, and also the additional dinner for the week, unless you were getting meal plans from possibly a different company. I'm gonna assume that you can add your breakfast as you want to all your meals. Just know that that already large price tag for just a couple dinners a week has now tripled itself. With HelloFresh, you're still also spending time preparing. I don't understand the argument of not having to go to the grocery store and saving time if I'm still having to make the meal. There's still a couple meals that are quick, but I talked about it before. they're like labeled 20 minutes or less, which gives me an impression that the other meals are not. And even more so, there's complaints. It's like maybe cooking it takes 20 minutes, but I had to actually prep all of the ingredients still, so it took a lot longer. People are ordering out, but it's like you still have the chore of doing the meal. And then people still have to pick out what they are eating every week anyways. However, that's where I guess like something like Factor comes in, right? Since it's basically HelloFresh, it's just a TV dinner. So there's little prep for the TV dinner route and a lot more prep for the HelloFresh route. But it's like if you're still having to pick out every single meal and it's not automatic, why not just go to the store and go down the TV dinner aisle and then just pick out a handful of meals while you're there? Nearly every grocery store offers delivery and curbside pickups. And then we enter my two favorite benefits.
I was actually saving money by cooking with HelloFresh.
Cost savings. It could be cheaper than eating out or ordering in because you're only getting what you want.
Is HelloFresh worth the price?
Just no, okay? On an average, for comparison, most people report being able to spend half at the regular grocery store by buying all of the ingredients themselves. And that's not even to mention having extra ingredients. There's also factors involving going to your local butcher for the protein. You can save money going to farmers markets or even like wholesale retailers, which I love to do. So let's do a little price comparison. All Factor meals on average are $12 to $14. I've seen some fluctuations, but I'm going to give them a range of 12 to 14. I can get a similar meal for a third of the price. For instance, Factor has a creamy chicken and broccoli meal. I can get a creamy basil chicken broccoli meal for $2. For Factor, you're just saving time. With HelloFresh, even if you buy all the ingredients fresh locally, you can still save like half the money and you usually have extra ingredients. Then we also have the pro of being able to try new meals every week. It's almost like the store doesn't have like different aisles. So novelty, changing your cuisine, the diet easily. Again, there's a grocery store. There's an array of food. A lot of these subscription services don't even offer the kinds of special foods that I could get locally. The food they advertise is very simple: meat, rice, creamy, tomato, marinara, and a lot of the ingredients are repetitive. Besides the seasoning, there isn't a lot of variety. People are like, I've ordered here for a couple weeks now, and it kind of just feels the same. It's usually differences between like sauce and seasoning. The only reason I think I really like the meal kits personally is because it can help people learn how to cook, and I think that's fine. It's just then after a couple weeks, once you get better, you stop, you know? Or it could be like a cute little activity you do at home where maybe you do with like your friends or family or significant other to kind of just expand your horizons a bit. And it's kind of like a pricey cooking training wheels, but it's like paying for a cooking class.
I have used HelloFresh exclusively for the last year, and here are some of the best cooking tips I picked up while using HelloFresh.
If you think it's worth it for you, awesome. I want people to realize that maybe not to trust companies at face value just because they're saying something. How do I change? So a couple tips on just general online food ordering. Most food ordering is good, but I would definitely be skeptical. For instance, like Shipped charges more money per item than if you just bought it directly from your grocery store. So I would just order it off of your grocery store website and not some side thing. Kind of like Uber Eats. A lot of food on Amazon is resold by people trying to get absurd prices for it or drop shipping food. I'd like to assume you guys are aware, but just in case you're not, buying it will continue to encourage that behavior. And I also just loathe people who price scalp. If you can, the cheapest, best option is probably going to be supporting locally. And then it's probably going to be like smaller businesses. And then from there, you kind of just have to work your way up. Look online for local farms and options too. Now that we covered Alyssa's little tips on how to try to save money in the digital landscape of the internet, our first step, pick a foodie. Use your recipe cards. Find foodie creators that you enjoy their food because they're gonna pretty much be your shopper. You can even pick their meal prep videos if you want, and then you'll pretty much already have the full internet education at your disposal to plan it all out for you. I like Fit Foodie Selma. She's pretty much guided all of the foods I make, and I don't really have to think about it that much. And when she comes out with a new video, that's where I get my variety from. So she has all of her recipes in her descriptions of her videos. If you like that type of stuff, if not, it's super easy to find someone else that you like the types of foods they like and kind of just start from there. 20 minutes of your time to just sit down and plan it out is going to be just as worth it than the time you spent browsing around HelloFresh and putting in your cart information. And if you want lazy meals or you have a gluten gluten allergy, you have celiac, IBS, you want high protein, like you will find someone for you. There is variety, and it's easy enough to also just like tweak or customize it something to yourself and not have to just hope the company you're ordering from is actually doing what they say they are. It might sound like common sense, but it isn't for everybody. To some people, this process might seem like a big task to start doing it yourself. Number 1, we pick the person we like. Number 2, make yourself a menu. I pick from it every week and I switch it every 3 to 6 months. I would just get a mix of hella easy meals, maybe a couple more involved meals and balance it out. Freezable meals are great because then if you don't want to eat it in 3 days, you can just freeze it and prep a lot longer in advance. And you could probably get away with making food anywhere from twice a week to once a month, depending on your situation. Number 3, how often are you going to cook your food? What containers are you going to do? And planning the day. I would choose how often you want to be cooking. I cook twice a week, so it takes me maybe like 3 hours. And then you should also plan your containers. You should just use what you have. Glass jars are super simple. TJ Maxx is super cheap plastic stuff if you want. I store most of my meal prep in mixing bowls with lids. Plan to do it when you have a day off or you're the most motivated. Step 4. Now that you know what to expect, you're gonna be going shopping. So now you gotta go ahead, get the supplies. If you don't want to be buying stuff you don't need, order ahead. Get it delivered to you, pick it up. Once you make the order, you can also usually reorder the items from last time, so next time it's an even faster process. And if you want to go into the store, I love checking stuff that might be going bad soon. Then I'm saving some money that way. And if you live somewhere warm or it's like summer, farmers markets are awesome. Good job, you got the food. Now you have to cook it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Follow the instructions that the people made for you. You make it, you store it, and now you don't have to cook for a while, and now you can stick to any goals that you wanted to. And now we're on to the last step. Hooray! Did it! Now you can see all of the money you saved. In recap, we basically picked a person we like. We made a menu based on what they told us were good meals. We planned the stuff that we needed for the day. We buy the food. We cooked the food. The food done. I just don't think these kinds of companies are worth it. I mean, getting the discount initially does make it not that terrible. I can get behind it a lot more with their active discounts, but the retention isn't great. Many people probably just end up re-upping these subscriptions to keep getting the discounts anyway. The pricing is probably fine if you want to keep doing that. A lot of the reviews that I've seen speak for themselves. The produce isn't any fresher than the grocery store. It's still getting shipped and wrapped in plastic, which is terrible for the environment. I'm sure people are looking to try and cut that bill down a bit anyway, and if they can while also saving time, it sort of feels like a no-brainer. If money isn't a concern, I would say go for an actual luxury meal service. Again, you can partake in whatever you want. If you've had a good experience, then that's great, and I'd love to hear that too. I mean, we all have different wants and needs and lifestyles, really, and I guess it's just the point is I urge you not to take these companies and their marketing at face value and really work on trying to take it with a grain of salt. And consider that there's a lot of other options out there that aren't just necessarily contributing to excessive consumerism. I guess I'll have to sign this one off kind of like the last video, but like we all matter and we all play a part in all the little things going on in the world, and our money really speaks for us sometimes. So it's like, make sure you at least believe in what you're throwing your money at. If there's anything that you would be interested in seeing from me and would like me to cover, I'd love to know. Otherwise, I would say thanks for the support. When will I be back? I don't know. And goodbye. See you.